It was a dream of mine to get it done. It took 8 years to get it sold, but here we are now.
Under the blinding shop lights and roaring engines, Richard Rawlings built more than just custom cars. He built a myth. But beneath the fast talk, burnouts, and million-dollar deals, a different story was unfolding, one that rarely made it to TV. You know, the gas monkey empire, the catchphrases, the chaos. But what happens when the cameras go dark and the real life starts creeping in? Somewhere between the garage doors and a high-profile unraveling, Rawlings faced a crossroads that had nothing to do with cars. This isn't just about fame or fast rides. It's about what he nearly lost while chasing it: the rise of a gearhead rock star. Richard Rawlings didn't just build cars, he built a movement. Long before Fast and Loud hit TV screens in 2012, Rawlings had already laid the foundation for Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas back in 2002. What started as a gritty local garage quickly transformed into the epicenter of a global automotive culture, thanks to Rawlings's relentless hustle and sharp instinct for what people wanted to see. He wasn't just restoring cars, he was flipping stories. His ability to turn every dented hot rod into high-stakes entertainment made Fast and Loud more than a show. It was an adrenaline-fueled spectacle that brought car culture to the mainstream. At the heart of this success was Rawlings himself, a fast-talking, deal-chasing, sunglasses-wearing showman who turned charisma into currency. He wasn't your average gearhead wrenching in silence. He was loud, unapologetically flashy, and deeply persuasive. Whether he was haggling over a rusted-out Camaro or landing a massive brand partnership, Rawlings brought rock star energy to the garage. Fans weren't just tuning in for the builds. They were watching to see what Rawlings would do or say next. In many ways, he became the face of a new kind of car culture, where personality mattered as much as performance. His rise to fame was no coincidence. Rawlings got the vanishing act between TV, business, and lifestyle branding. He harnessed catchy phrases like "get you some of that" and "gas monkey" into a merchandising powerhouse, and over time, he embedded himself into pop culture through TV appearances, national commercials, and even record label ventures. Essentially, the art of car restoration was no longer for hardcore mechanics. It was loud, proud, and flashy. But as the media spotlight continued to persecute him all day long, this led his followers to wonder, is Rawlings still a builder at heart, or more of a brand? With the ratings crawl on Fast and Loud, the popularity of Rawlings grew even more, consequently soaring up through ranks from garages to red carpets to boardrooms and national ad campaigns. Higher he went, never his attention spared to entertaining the masses. Would the charm that built an empire also become a mask for wear and tear behind the scenes? Did fame ever grow too large for the original vision? These questions continue to float around as Rawlings steadily puts his evolution ahead of the TV screen. And one thing is clear: this Dallas native basically turned car culture into showbiz, and in doing so, became a gearhead icon of sorts. Not everything under the hood was running smoothly. Tensions were tightening, and one key player was reaching his breaking point: the creative clash. Aaron Kaufman wasn't just Richard Rawlings's sidekick, he was the soul of Fast and Loud. With his signature beard, quiet demeanor, and almost obsessive attention to detail, Kaufman brought legitimacy to the builds that kept viewers hooked. While Rawlings was the salesman and showman, Kaufman was the craftsman, turning wrecked husks into roaring machines with an artist's precision. From the very beginning, their dynamic was electric. Rawlings hunted down deals. Kaufman made them real, But as the show gained popularity, that chemistry began to show cracks. Fans noticed it. Kaufman didn't look as energized. He spoke less. And some even wondered if he was starting to check out. The reality was that the breakneck pace of reality TV didn't mesh with Kaufman's approach to building cars. Working under tight deadlines, constant camera pressure, and increasingly commercial expectations started to chip away at his creative freedom. Kaufman has since alluded to the struggle, how TV forced them to prioritize what looked good on screen over what made sense mechanically or artistically. It wasn't about innovation anymore, it was about speed, spectacle, and sponsor timelines. Was the show sacrificing quality for content? Kaufman seemed to think so, and he wasn't alone. Hardcore fans began to feel the shift too. Tension behind the scenes was never directly confirmed, but speculation has long circled their partnership. While both men were professionals, their priorities were clearly diverging. Kaufman wanted to push boundaries, take on complicated builds, and evolve as a builder. Rawlings, on the other hand, had bigger fish to fry. Licensing deals, commercial tie-ins, and an expanding media brand. The direction of Fast and Loud was increasingly driven by entertainment value, not mechanical excellence. Did Kaufman feel like the show was no longer a creative space, but a corporate machine? Many believe that was the final push that led to his departure in 2017. When Kaufman finally left, it wasn't dramatic, but it was seismic. He framed it as a personal decision, wanting to pursue projects on his own terms. But to many fans, it felt like a turning point, maybe even the beginning of the end for Fast and Loud. The show never quite recaptured the same energy afterward. The builds felt different. The chemistry was gone. Kaufman's exit raised more than just questions about the show. It raised questions about the cost of turning passion into product. And while Rawlings would continue forward, many viewers quietly wondered, did Fast and Loud lose its heart when Kaufman walked away? Garage Rehab, expansion or escape plan? When Richard Rawlings pitched Garage Rehab to the Discovery Channel in 2016, many saw it as a bold new chapter for the Fast and Loud star. The concept was simple yet compelling. Instead of flipping cars, he'd flip struggling auto shops, reviving failing businesses with his trademark energy and business savvy. It wasn't just about wrenches and horsepower anymore. This was about leadership, organization, and second chances. Alongside co-hosts Chris Stevens and Russell Holmes, Rawlings entered garages across the country and gave them makeovers, both physical and operational. But while the show looked like another natural extension of the Gas Monkey brand, some fans couldn't help but ask, was this really about expansion, or was Rawlings already planning his exit from Fast and Loud? The timing raised eyebrows. Garage Rehab was greenlit during a period when Fast and Loud was still riding high in ratings, but clearly evolving. The early energy of barn finds and high-stakes builds had begun to fade, especially after the departure of Aaron Kaufman. Could it be that Rawlings saw the writing on the wall and decided to hedge his bets? On paper, it was a smart business pivot. Garage Rehab allowed him to remain on TV, expand his brand into consulting and mentorship, and showcase a more serious, strategic side of himself. But was it also a sign of creative fatigue with the old format? Fans debated whether Rawlings was genuinely passionate about reviving other garages, or just looking for a way out of the chaos he'd helped create. Unlike the quick flash and fast pace of Fast and Loud, Garage Rehab brought something else into the picture. Something less about entertainment and more about change. Rawlings seemed to enjoy the fixer role, stepping in with a tough-love business coach attitude rather than that of a wild-eyed car flipper. Big-time change in tone, perhaps more reflection of where Rawlings saw the future for himself. He had been living large, building an empire, Now he was positioning himself as someone who could teach others how to do the same. While the shift generated new questions about whether he was trying to distance himself from the gritty, garage-based roots that had made him famous, or was it just the evolution of a guy who never wanted to park in one lane? For sure, Garage Rehab changed the whole landscape in marking a moment of time when Rawlings wasn't afraid to reinvent himself. And he also knew the limitations of Fast and Loud. Was this just a passion project, or just the next step on the way up? It begs the question because of the perfect timing it had with the growing signs of burnout from the original series. So maybe he already knew that Fast and Loud couldn't go on forever. Or maybe it was just Rawlings following his gut feeling and shifting gears before the engine was down for the count. One way or the other, Garage Rehab was proof Rawlings was not just looking at what was going to happen with the next show. He was looking toward the end game. The Dodge deal, smart or overload? When Richard Rawlings landed a national endorsement deal with Dodge in 2014, it felt like the ultimate validation. A guy who once hustled rust buckets out of dusty barns was now the face of one of America's most iconic muscle car brands. For Rawlings, it was more than just another gig. It was a high-octane alignment between brand and identity. He tore through commercials in Hellcats, burned rubber on screen, and injected his signature swagger into every frame. Fans initially loved it. It wasn't just a celebrity hawking a car. Rawlings was the car guy. It felt authentic, like Dodge had finally partnered with someone who lived and breathed horsepower. But the deeper Rawlings dove into corporate deals, the more some fans began to question where his priorities really were. From 2014 to 2017, he seemed to be everywhere. In Dodge ads, on new TV shows, pushing energy drinks, opening restaurants, and launching more merch than ever. It was hard to keep track of whether you were watching a car show or a personal brand in overdrive. Critics started whispering about overexposure. Was Rawlings diluting the gas monkey identity by attaching his name to everything that moved? Or worse, selling out the raw edge that had made him a fan favorite in the first place? The Dodge partnership, while on brand, seemed to mark a turning point in Rawlings's public image. No longer the underdog wrenching away in obscurity, he was now a polished, marketable figure who could hold his own in ad agency boardrooms. While that's not inherently a bad thing, it raised concerns about authenticity. Was he still the same car guy that fans rooted for in the early days of Fast and Loud? Or had he become a mascot for muscle cars, more pitchman than passion project? The Dodge ads eventually slowed down and the fanfare faded, but the questions lingered. It's still unclear whether the Dodge deal was a masterstroke in brand synergy or the beginning of a shift that would ultimately distance Rawlings from his garage roots. On one hand, it elevated him to mainstream celebrity status. On the other hand, it blurred the line between gearhead and marketing machine. Some fans celebrated his business hustle. Others quietly missed the guy who used to gamble everything on a dusty Chevelle. The Dodge era showed just how far Rawlings could go when he put his brand in the driver's seat. But it also hinted at the cost of that kind of acceleration. Not in dollars, but in authenticity. The gas monkey licensing era. As the Fast and Loud phenomenon reached its peak, Richard Rawlings made a bold and controversial move. He began licensing the Gas Monkey brand. No longer just a garage, Gas Monkey became a full-blown business empire, with the name slapped on everything from energy drinks and beer to restaurants, apparel, and automotive parts. It was a power play that few builders had pulled off successfully. And on paper, it was genius. Why keep the brand boxed into a TV show or a single shop in Dallas when you could turn it into a global lifestyle? For Rawlings, It was less about wrenches and welds, and more about reach. But as the Gas Monkey logo spread across shelves and cities, a growing number of fans began to ask, had the brand lost its soul? What once represented gritty, hands-on car culture was now plastered on novelty hot sauces and tequila bottles. Critics argued that Rawlings had drifted too far from his garage roots, trading authenticity for mass appeal. Was this evolution or erosion? Some longtime viewers felt disconnected, saying that the builds took a back seat while the brand became a marketing machine. And while Rawlings never shied away from business hustle, the volume of licensing deals made it hard to tell whether he was still running a garage or just managing a portfolio. At a certain point, there was no denying Rawlings's huge success. With licensing, Rawlings was able to expand the Gas Monkey name far beyond the reach of a mere reality show. Merchandise was everywhere. Bars and restaurants, notwithstanding the turbulence, were landmarks in Texas. And in giving third-party companies access to the brand, he created multiple revenue streams for himself, while spending far less time on the daily grind than he would have had to in front of a camera or on a build. From a strictly business perspective, it was a brilliant move. Yet, creatively? And that is where the real chasm still remains. Can you really call it Gas Monkey Garage any longer when the garage is now secondary? In interviews, Rawlings has often said he sees no wrong in that. As he points out, he created the brand from nothing, and therefore, he had the right to exploit it. And he's not wrong. An awful lot of risk was taken to build Gas Monkey, and maybe licensing was just the next logical step. But this leads to a more profound question. Is this exactly what the fans of Fast and Loud signed up for? Becoming a licensee made Rawlings supremely wealthy. It also created problems with his legacy. Did business outgrow the build? Or was this just the natural evolution of a hustler who never stopped thinking bigger? The answer might depend on whether one considers Gas Monkey a garage or a brand first. Success was roaring. The brand was booming. So why did the engine suddenly cut out when the cameras stopped rolling? The fall of the franchise. By the time Fast and Loud quietly ended in 2020, the once iconic show had already been signaling its decline. There was no grand finale, no heartfelt goodbye episode, just a vague confirmation from Richard Rawlings that his partnership with Discovery was over. For a series that had dominated automotive reality TV for nearly a decade, the lack of closure was surprising. Rawlings would later reveal that the decision to walk away was his own, stating in interviews, "I've exited Discovery. We're done. I'm a free agent." But this abrupt ending left fans with more questions than answers. Was it truly a move toward creative freedom, or the result of deeper tensions with the network? Behind the scenes, Rawlings hinted that his contract with Discovery had become increasingly restrictive. One surprising detail he shared was that he had signed away media rights to the point where he couldn't even post photos of his own car purchases on social media without Discovery's approval. For a businessman so closely tied to personal branding and self-promotion, this was a serious limitation. It's easy to imagine how this kind of red tape may have clashed with Rawlings's entrepreneurial instincts. Did he feel boxed in creatively and professionally? Was the structure of the show stifling his evolution as both a builder and a brand? Compounding the issue was the changing landscape of car entertainment on TV. Discovery had begun shifting its focus to newer shows like Street Outlaws, Gold Rush, and Diesel Brothers, formats that leaned into gritty competition and broader character ensembles. In contrast, Fast and Loud was still built around a single personality and a more traditional flip-and-build model. As streaming platforms rose and younger audiences migrated to YouTube and social media, The question became whether Rawlings' style of television was simply running out of road. Did Discovery see Fast and Loud as yesterday's news? Or had the show simply exhausted its narrative fuel? Whatever the reason, the end of Fast and Loud marked more than the close of a TV show. It was the end of an era. The chemistry, the hustle, the barn finds, the tension, the triumphs. It all helped define a moment in car culture. But like any long-running engine pushed to its limits, it eventually wore out. Whether Rawlings left to reclaim control or because the network lost interest remains open to interpretation. But one thing is clear. The cameras stopped rolling not with a bang, but a burnout. And in true gas monkey fashion, Richard Rawlings didn't stick around to clean up the smoke. He was already shifting gears toward whatever came next. High-end builds and exotic risks. After Fast and Loud came to a halt in 2020, many wondered if Richard Rawlings would fade from the custom car spotlight. Instead, he took a sharp turn away from TV deadlines and network constraints and dove headfirst into more ambitious, high-stakes builds. No longer confined to the fast turnaround formats that shaped the show, Rawlings began chasing bigger, wilder projects through Gas Monkey Garage. These weren't your average muscle car flips. Think 6x6 Humvees, exotic European restorations, and experimental customs that would have never fit into a 43-minute reality show format. This shift wasn't just about flash. It was about freedom. Rawlings had long expressed frustration over the limitations of episodic television, which often demanded simplified builds and unrealistic timelines. Now operating on his own terms, he set his sights on more elite territory. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and rare vintage imports became new obsessions. But with that came new challenges. Exotic builds carry enormous financial risk and draw scrutiny from purist communities. One wrong modification on a high-dollar vehicle could alienate buyers or tank resale value. Was Rawlings pushing innovation or simply gambling with his reputation? Pressure or no pressure, Rawlings kept on going. He auctioned off a number of Gas Monkey garage cars to get the funding for these newer and more complicated builds, really signaling a major redirection of focus. He wasn't just strumming for nostalgia anymore. These exotic cars offered a platform to further assert the technical capabilities of his team, push the envelope, and attract a different audience, the kind that would appreciate precision just as much as performance. But this pivot begs a bigger question. Would the faithful Fast and Loud fanbase, who bought into Till barn finds and budget flips, go along with him into this new realm of exotic? For Rawlings, that may be inconsequential. Staying in line doesn't seem to occupy his mind much. In true entrepreneurial spirit, it's what's next that really matters. Post-TV Gas Monkey is about risk, spectacle, and sheer creative liberation, whether that's a French recreational tank or an exotic German classic. Maybe it's less accessible and gritty than before, but one thing that's for sure, the new Gas Monkey team is not lacking boldness. Richard Rawlings isn't chasing TV ratings anymore. He's chasing legacy. Building the only real question being whether this new Gas Monkey team will define him as an innovator in the car world, or will it be too radical for the faithful to track? Gas Monkey 2.0. After stepping away from network television, Richard Rawlings set his sights on revitalizing his presence in his hometown, and Gas Monkey 2.0 was born. In 2025, he announced the opening of the Gas Monkey Ice House in the Colony, Texas, not far from where it all began. The new venue marks a bold comeback following the closure of Gas Monkey Live in 2020 and the rebranding of the original Gas Monkey Bar and Grill. But this time, Rawlings is doubling down on Texas pride and automotive culture, with plans to film YouTube content on site and make the location a hub for both fans and car lovers. It's not just a bar, it's part of a larger plan to keep Gas Monkey visible and relevant in a rapidly evolving media landscape. As traditional TV lost steam, Rawlings pivoted hard toward digital platforms. The Gas Monkey Garage YouTube channel, already stocked with hundreds of videos, has become his main vehicle for staying connected to fans. The channel features everything from high-end builds to shop tours and lifestyle content, offering a more unfiltered look at Rawlings and his team. Unlike the curated chaos of Fast and Loud, YouTube allows for flexibility, experimentation, and a direct relationship with viewers. It's also free of the red tape that once limited his social media and content under Discovery's contract. In many ways, this digital pivot gives Rawlings more creative control than he ever had on TV. Complementing the YouTube hustle is Rawlings's foray into podcasting. His show, Monkey Trap, covers not just cars, but a wide range of personal topics: bad Tinder dates, NFT investments, and celebrity interviews. While it might seem like a departure from the garage, it actually highlights how Rawlings is expanding his brand beyond car culture and into lifestyle and entertainment. He's no longer just a builder or even just a businessman. He's a full-fledged media personality. Whether this move is strategic genius or risky overreach depends on whom you ask. But one thing's clear: Rawlings isn't interested in disappearing into the background. With the Ice House revival, online content creation, and his unmistakable drive to stay in the spotlight, Rawlings is essentially rebuilding the Gas Monkey empire brick by digital brick. Some fans might long for the gritty garage days of Fast and Loud, but Rawlings seems more focused on the future than the past. Will his mix of real estate ventures, online hustle, and branded spaces be enough to sustain the brand without the boost of cable TV? Or is he risking diluting the essence that once made Gas Monkey great? Time will tell. But if there's one thing Rawlings knows how to do, it's adapt and sell the ride. Podcast, life, and public image shifts. When Richard Rawlings launched the Monkey Trap podcast, it wasn't just another content extension, it was a calculated leap into unfiltered territory. No longer bound by network censors or the need to sell the build, Rawlings used the podcast to reintroduce himself to fans, this time on his own terms. The episodes range from candid personal stories to rants on social media culture, NFTs, and the changing landscape of fame. He's spoken about business missteps, bad dates, and even the toll of celebrity. For someone who once thrived on slick TV edits and catchphrases, Monkey Trap revealed a messier, more human Rawlings, one that some fans found refreshing, while others weren't quite sure what to make of. The podcast also became a testing ground for how far Rawlings could stretch his brand beyond the car scene. Topics that had little to do with hot rods, cryptocurrency, real estate, even conspiracy theories crept into episodes, signaling a shift in tone and audience. Was this Rawlings trying to grow beyond his Gas Monkey persona, or was it a case of a public figure in search of reinvention? Either way, the move sparked chatter. Some listeners loved the behind-the-scenes transparency. Others missed the mechanical focus. Still, Rawlings's willingness to experiment showed he wasn't content to be a one-lane entertainer. In terms of public relations, the podcast arrived in the nick of time. Following the demise of Fast and Loud, after Rawlings was being increasingly castigated for having sold out his garage roots, Monkey Trap offered him some kind of narrative control. He addressed these controversies head-on, like the backlash from licensing decisions, his separation from Discovery, and even some personal drama, without any PR-based spin. But being open also means that some risks lie ahead. That same sort of upfront honesty that wins loyal fans puts to light inconsistencies. Has Rawlings evolved into a serious entrepreneur, or is he still engaged in acting, albeit behind a podcasting microphone rather than a camera crew? Where no matter you place Rawlings on that spectrum, Monkey Trap undoubtedly has altered his public image forever. He has transcended being a local celebrity, recognized only as the face of Gas Monkey Garage, to somewhat of a lifestyle commentator sitting atop a fractured triplet of automotive culture, digital media, and modern-day influencer branding. Whether this will positively contribute to his legacy or taint, it is yet to be decided. In any case, this media landscape values authenticity far above slickness, and that alone may have made Rawlings' advance into podcasting his shrewdest move so far. The garage doors may have closed, but that microphone is still steaming hot, and Rawlings certainly isn't done talking yet. Just when Richard Rawlings seemed fully in control of his narrative, life off-camera delivered a twist that no podcast episode could fully explain. The Suzanne Story and Private Turmoil. Richard Rawlings' life off-camera has always hovered at the edges of his public image, but his relationship with Suzanne Merrill, his second wife and on-again, off-again partner, offered a rare window into his emotional world. Their story was one of intense connection, multiple reconciliations, and ultimately, a public unraveling. Rawlings married Suzanne twice, first in 1999 and again in 2015 after a brief divorce. For a while, they seemed to embody the comeback spirit that Rawlings built his brand on. But the second attempt didn't last either, and by 2019, their split was official again. While Rawlings rarely addressed it in depth on television, the fallout echoed quietly through his later ventures. The timing of their final breakup coincided with a noticeable shift in Rawlings' tone, both publicly and creatively. Fans speculated whether personal strain played a role in the winding down of Fast and Loud and the pivot to new platforms like podcasting and YouTube. In his Monkey Trap podcast, Rawlings has alluded to struggles with relationships and the toll that fame and constant hustle can take on personal life. It's a side of him rarely seen during the Gas Monkey heyday, a man grappling with more than just builds and business deals. Was the Suzanne Story a turning point that forced Rawlings to rethink what mattered most? Interestingly, Rawlings' openness about dating and relationships in recent years feels both cathartic and calculated. From Tinder stories to casual mentions of heartbreak, he's inviting fans into a more vulnerable version of himself, albeit on his terms. It raises the question, is this personal transparency a new phase of maturity or another layer of branding? Either way, it seems clear that Rawlings is no longer just marketing Gas Monkey Garage. He's marketing Richard Rawlings, the man. And part of that story includes admitting when the engines stall, even in love. Ultimately, the Suzanne chapter adds complexity to the legacy of a man known for bravado and swagger. It reminds fans that behind the flashy cars, booming deals, and rock star persona, Rawlings is human and not immune to the emotional detours that come with living loudly in the public eye. Whether the heartbreak shaped his current path or simply reflected the chaos of it is up for debate. But for someone who's always been willing to show the world his wins, the rare glimpse into his losses might be what makes his story more relatable and more real. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this deep dive, make sure to like the video, drop a comment with your favorite Rawlings moment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Got more questions? Hit that bell so you're the first to know when we post. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video on screen to keep the ride going. See you in the next one.